The large screen in the command center showed a ship unlike anything humans had ever built. It moved slowly toward Earth's orbit, its surface gleaming with a green-blue light. Men and women in uniform stared at it, some with fear, others with wonder. Commander Allison Wright took a deep breath. At 42 years old, she never expected to be humanity's first official contact with aliens. Yet here she was, about to welcome visitors from another world. "Are you ready, Commander?" asked General Peterson. "As ready as I'll ever be, sir," she replied, straightening her Blue Earth Defense Fleet uniform. The world had changed 3 days ago, when the strange ship appeared near Jupiter. It sent a simple message in perfect English. "We come in peace." This raised many questions, but the most pressing was how these aliens, who called themselves Viridians, learned our language. As Commander Wright boarded the shuttle to the International Space Station, where the meeting would take place, she thought about her family back home in Oregon. Her husband, Paul, had said he was proud of her, but she heard the worry in his voice. The journey to the space station took 6 hours. When they docked, Wright and her small team of 5 waited in the meeting room. The air felt thick with tension. The door on the opposite side opened. 3 tall beings entered. They looked almost human except for their blue-tinted skin and large, dark eyes. The one in front stepped forward. "I am San, ambassador of the Viridian Collective," it said in that same perfect English they had heard in the message. "We are pleased to meet humanity face to face. I am Commander Allison Wright of the Earth Defense Fleet. On behalf of Earth, welcome," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. The meeting lasted 4 hours. The Viridians explained they had been watching Earth for decades. They claimed to be part of a peaceful alliance of worlds and invited Earth to join them. They offered technology, medicine, and knowledge. "This seems too good to be true," Wright said to her team later in private. "Why would they give us so much and ask for so little in return?" "Maybe they really are just friendly," suggested Lieutenant Kim. Wright wasn't convinced. "Contact intelligence. I want to know more about these Viridians before we agree to anything." Back on Earth, Intelligence Officer Kevin Martinez sat in a dark room filled with screens. For 2 days straight, he had been trying to crack the strange signals coming from the Viridian ship. Most of their communications were open and matched what they told Commander Wright, but there was another set of encrypted messages they didn't mention. When he finally broke through, what he found made his blood run cold. "Get me Commander Wright now," he shouted to his assistant. On the space station, Wright was in her second meeting with Ambassador San when she received the urgent message from Martinez. "They're lying," it read. The encrypted transmissions mention preparation for cleansing and human containment protocols. They've done this before on other worlds. Wright looked up at San, who was smiling at her. She kept her face calm despite her racing heart. "Ambassador, we've detected other transmissions from your ship. Can you explain what human containment protocols means?" she asked directly. The smile vanished from San's face. The room grew silent. "You were not meant to see those," San said finally, all pretense of friendliness gone. "Your species is more resourceful than we anticipated." Wright stood up. "I think this meeting is over. Earth is not interested in your offer." "It doesn't matter what Earth wants," San replied coldly. "The decision has already been made." The Viridians left abruptly. Within an hour, their ship moved away from the space station. Wright rushed to contact Earth. All defense systems on full alert. "The Viridians are hostile. I repeat, the Viridians are hostile." But it was already too late. Across the globe, people looked up to see dozens of new ships appearing in the sky. The Viridian fleet had arrived, and they had not come in peace. The first bombs fell at dawn. They hit New York, London, Beijing, and Moscow at exactly the same time. There was no warning, no chance to evacuate. The blasts were not nuclear, but something worse. They seemed to tear apart the very air itself, creating waves of destruction that flattened buildings like they were made of paper. Captain Daniel Foster was in a meeting at the Pentagon when the attack began. The building shook violently. Lights flickered and died. He ducked under the table as chunks of ceiling crashed down. "Everyone out," he shouted, pulling a young lieutenant to her feet. "Head for the emergency bunker." They ran through dark hallways filled with dust and smoke. Foster counted 12 people with him when they reached the bunker. 12 out of hundreds who worked in the building. The heavy doors sealed shut behind them. The backup generators kicked on, bringing dim light to their shelter. "What's happening?" asked a civilian analyst, blood running down her face from a cut on her forehead. "We're under attack," Foster said simply. He turned to the communications officer. "Can we reach anyone outside?" The officer tried every channel. Most returned only static. Finally, a broken voice came through. "This is Command. Viridian ships everywhere, bombing all major cities." Then nothing. For 3 days, they huddled in the bunker, listening to the world end above them. The bombs fell without stopping. Each impact made the thick concrete walls around them shake. On the 4th day, the bombing stopped. Foster led a small team to the surface. What they saw made them stop and stare in horror. Washington, D.C. was gone. Where proud buildings once stood, there was only rubble and ash. The Washington Monument was broken in half. The White House was a smoking crater. "Dear God," whispered the lieutenant beside him. Foster looked up at the sky. Huge Viridian ships hung there, silent now that their work was done. "They think they've won," he said. "They think we're beaten." Thousands of miles away, Dr. Samantha Parker watched the same ships from the window of her underground lab in Colorado. The research facility had been built inside a mountain decades ago, designed to survive even nuclear war. Now it was one of the few places left untouched by the alien bombardment. "How many dead?" she asked quietly. "Early estimates say millions," replied her colleague, Dr. Wells. "Maybe tens of millions, and that's just in North America." Samantha turned away from the window. Her eyes fell on her life's work, the experimental shield technology she had been developing for years. It was meant to protect spaceships from radiation during long journeys. Now it might be humanity's only hope. "They didn't find us," she said. "They don't know about this place or what we've been working on." "What good is a shield now?" Dr. Wells asked. "We needed it before the bombing." "No," Samantha said, a fire lighting in her eyes. "We need it for what comes next." Back in the ruins of Washington, Foster's team discovered they weren't alone. Survivors emerged from basements and subway tunnels. Military personnel who had been underground when the bombing started. Civilians who had gotten lucky. Foster gathered them together in what remained of the Pentagon's lowest level. "The Viridians think they've crushed us," he told them. "They expect us to surrender, to kneel before them and accept whatever they have planned for us." He looked at the faces watching him. Dirty, injured, but alive. Still human, still fighting. "But they don't understand who they're dealing with," he continued. "They don't know humans. We don't give up. We don't surrender. Not ever." A woman stepped forward. "What can we do against those ships? Against that kind of power?" Foster smiled grimly. "We do what humans have always done when faced with superior force. We adapt. We find weaknesses. We fight smart." He pulled out a map of the city and spread it on a makeshift table. "First, we gather intel. Then we contact other survivors, build a network, learn everything we can about the enemy." He looked up at the ceiling, imagining the ships beyond it. "The Viridians made one huge mistake. They left some of us alive. And as long as there are humans breathing, Earth is not defeated." 6 months passed since the bombings. The world looked different now. Most cities were ruins. Viridian towers rose from the rubble, tall black structures where the aliens lived and worked. They rarely came out. Instead, they used machines and human helpers to control Earth. These helpers wore special collars and repeated the same message everywhere. "The Viridian Protectorate offers peace and safety. Submit and be spared." But deep underground, in old subway tunnels and forgotten bunkers, People were not submitting at all. Captain Foster, now with a thick beard and a scar across his cheek, looked at the maps spread across the table. Red marks showed Viridian control points. Blue marks showed resistance bases. There were more blue marks than there had been a month ago. "We hit their supply line in Boston yesterday," said Olivia Garcia, a former Air Force pilot who had joined Foster early on. "Got away with 3 trucks of food and medicine." Foster nodded. "Good. What about the radio network?" "Growing every day," Olivia replied. "We've connected with groups in Canada and Mexico. Europe is coming online too. Slowly, but it's happening." This was how they fought back, one small victory at a time. Taking resources, building networks, learning the enemy's patterns. The Viridians had expected humans to give up. They didn't know that humans only fought harder when pushed into a corner. In the Colorado Mountain facility, now code-named Haven, Dr. Samantha Parker hadn't seen daylight in months. She and her team worked non-stop on their project. "Try it again," she told Eric Johnson, her chief engineer. Eric was young, only 30, but brilliant with technology. He activated the test chamber. Inside, a small drone fired energy blasts at a metal plate. The plate was covered in a thin layer of shimmering material, Samantha's shield technology. The blasts hit the shield and scattered harmlessly away. "It works," Eric shouted. "The shield holds." Samantha allowed herself a small smile. "Yes, but that's only at 20% of Viridian weapon strength. We need it stronger." "We'll get there," Eric said. "This is already more than we had last week." The real breakthrough had come when they captured a Viridian weapon. A resistance group led by Foster had ambushed a patrol and taken their equipment. Getting it to Haven had cost 3 lives. But now they knew how Viridian weapons worked and how to stop them. "The problem," Samantha explained to her team, "is that we can't make enough shield material for everyone. We need something smaller, something that can disable their weapons instead." Eric thought for a moment. What if we reverse the field? Instead of blocking their energy, we could make something that disrupts it at the source. Samantha's eyes widened. A disruptor. Yes, that could work. She grabbed a tablet and started making calculations. If we can make it small enough, every fighter could carry one. Miles away, Foster's group received an unexpected visitor. A thin man with glasses arrived at their hidden entrance, led by one of their scouts. "This is Peter," the scout said. "He worked at a Viridian control center before escaping. He has information." Foster studied the man carefully. "What kind of information?" Peter looked nervous but determined. "I know how they communicate with each other. And more importantly, I know they're not as numerous as they want us to believe." The room fell silent. "What do you mean?" Foster asked. "The Viridians," Peter explained. "There aren't millions of them like we thought. Maybe only thousands. They use technology to make it seem like they're everywhere. Most of those ships in the sky. Empty. Automated." Foster leaned forward. "How do you know this?" "I cleaned their quarters. They don't see humans as a threat, so they talk freely around us. I heard them complaining about being stretched too thin. Their invasion force is small. They expected us to surrender completely after the bombing." Foster exchanged looks with Olivia. This changed everything. "If what you're saying is true," Foster said slowly, "then we might actually have a chance." For the first time since the bombing, he felt something new, not just determination to fight, but actual hope that they could win. A year had passed since the day the bombs fell. Winter snow covered the ruins of Chicago, making the broken buildings look almost peaceful. But beneath the quiet surface, something big was about to happen. Lieutenant Christopher Bennett checked his watch. 2 minutes to go. He looked at his team of 20 fighters, all dressed in white to blend with the snow. They carried weapons made from a mix of human and stolen Viridian technology. "Remember," he whispered, "this is just a distraction. We make noise, we draw them out, then we run. Don't try to be a hero." Everyone nodded. They understood the plan. At exactly noon, they attacked the Viridian processing facility. It was a huge building where the aliens sorted through Earth resources before shipping them to their vessels. The first shots hit the guards outside. Alarms wailed across the compound. "Keep moving," Christopher shouted as they pushed forward. The resistance fighters fired at security cameras and sensor arrays, creating as much chaos as possible. Just as expected, Viridian guards poured out of the building. They were tall, their blue skin standing out against the white snow. They fired back with energy weapons that melted everything they touched. For 15 minutes, the battle raged. Then Christopher gave the signal. Fall back. Mission complete. His team retreated, disappearing into the ruins as quickly as they had come. 5 fighters didn't make it. Christopher felt the loss deeply, but reminded himself of the bigger picture. Their sacrifice had meaning. Because while the Viridians were busy defending their processing facility, the real mission was happening hundreds of miles away. In the Rocky Mountains, a small team led by Captain Foster approached a hidden structure built into the mountainside. Unlike the black towers in the cities, this building was camouflage, not meant to be found by humans. "This is it," Foster said quietly. "Their communication hub." According to Peter, their informant, this facility connected all Viridian forces on Earth. Every order, every report passed through here. "Security looks light," observed Olivia. "They really don't expect anyone to find this place." "That's their weakness," Foster replied. "They underestimate us at every turn." The team moved silently through the trees. They wore special suits designed by Dr. Parker that masked their body heat from Viridian sensors. When they reached the entrance, they encountered only 2 guards. Foster's team took them down quickly and quietly. Inside, they found just 5 Viridians operating complex equipment. "Hands up," Foster shouted, leading his team into the control room. The aliens froze, obviously shocked to see humans in their secret facility. One reached for a weapon. Olivia shot him without hesitation. The others raised their hands. "Get to work," Foster told the tech specialists on his team. They rushed to the computers while the rest kept the aliens covered. "Captain, you need to see this," called one of the techs after a few minutes. Foster looked at the screens. They showed maps, deployment plans, and communication logs. The tech pointed to a section of text. "This confirms what Peter told us. The invasion force is small, only about 5,000 Viridians on the entire planet. They're using drones and automated systems to control much larger areas." "Why so few?" Foster asked. The tech scrolled through more files. "From what I can tell, this isn't their main force. It's just an expeditionary group. They expected minimal resistance after the bombing." Another tech called out, "I found their fleet logs. Most of those ships in orbit are empty. They're just for show." Foster felt a surge of hope. They wanted us to think they were overwhelming, that fighting back was pointless. "There's more," the first tech said. "They have a weakness. Their communication system is centralized. If we can control this hub, we can disrupt their entire operation," Foster finished. "Download everything. We're taking this place." Instead of planting explosives as originally planned, Foster made a new decision. They would hold this facility and use it against the Viridians. He called Haven on their secure line. "Dr. Parker, the mission succeeded, but plans have changed. We found something better than we expected." For the first time, the humans had gained a real advantage. The turning point of the war had arrived. Dr. Samantha Parker stared at the data from the captured Viridian communication hub. For 3 days straight, she and her team had been studying it. Now she stood up so quickly her chair fell backward. "That's it," she shouted. "That's their weakness." Eric Johnson looked up from his own screen. "What did you find?" Samantha pointed to a section of Viridian code. "Their systems operate on a very specific frequency range. It's why our normal weapons don't work against them. They're completely protected from those energy levels." "Okay," Eric said slowly. But how does that help us? Because, she explained, her eyes bright with excitement, they have no protection against these other frequencies. She pointed to another part of the screen. These low-band radio waves, we've known about them for over a century, but mostly ignored them because they seemed useless for modern technology. Eric studied the numbers. Understanding dawned on his face. They've done the same thing. Ignored them because they seemed harmless. Exactly. Samantha began drawing on a whiteboard. If we can create devices that emit powerful bursts on these frequencies, we could disrupt their shields, their weapons, maybe even their communication systems. Within hours, the lab was busy building prototypes. They modified old radio equipment, combining it with parts from Viridian technology. The result was ugly but functional. A device about the size of a flashlight that emitted powerful bursts of low-frequency radio waves. When tested against captured Viridian equipment, the results were better than anyone hoped. Shields failed. Weapons powered down. Communication devices went silent. Samantha sent word to Foster. We have something that works. Mass production starting now. In a different part of Haven, Ryan Sullivan sat with a group of resistance fighters. Before the invasion, Ryan had designed video games. Now he used those skills to create battle plans. The thing about the Viridians, he explained to the group, is that they fight like computers, predictable patterns and responses. They expect us to do the same. He laid out a map showing a Viridian patrol route. They take the same path every time. They expect attacks from buildings or cover. He pointed to several spots. So instead, we'll come from here and here, places they wouldn't consider tactically sound. Because they're not tactically sound, one fighter objected. Ryan smiled. Exactly. They'll never expect us to make bad tactical decisions on purpose. Their algorithms can't account for humans being deliberately unpredictable. His unorthodox tactics had already proven successful in smaller operations. Now, with Dr. Parker's new devices, they could expand to larger targets. Meanwhile, in what had once been a university laboratory, botanist Michelle Clark made a discovery of her own. She had been studying Viridian biology from tissue samples collected from dead aliens. She looked through her microscope at a petri dish where Viridian cells were rapidly dying. The cause? Common soil bacteria from her garden. It makes sense, she told her assistant. They've never been exposed to Earth microbes. They have no immunity. This discovery led to a new weapon. Simple mud bombs that could be thrown at Viridian soldiers or vented into their facilities. The alien-sealed suits protected them, but any breach meant potential infection. At the captured communication hub, Foster received reports of all these developments with growing optimism. The resistance was no longer just surviving. It was innovating. The Viridians think they're smarter than us, he told Olivia as they reviewed the latest intelligence. They think their technology makes them superior. But technology isn't everything, she replied. Foster nodded. Human creativity, adaptability. Those are our real strengths. And they're things the Viridians never accounted for. He looked at the map of Earth displayed on the big screen. Small blue dots showed resistance forces growing in number across every continent. It's time, he said. Send the message to all groups. Operation Pushback begins in 2 weeks. After a year of hiding and gathering strength, humanity was ready to fight back in force. The plan was bold, maybe even crazy, but humans were good at crazy. Foster gathered the resistance leaders from across North America. They met in the underground hub, faces tired but determined. Operation Pushback starts with deception, he explained, pointing to a map. We'll send fake messages that the Viridians will intercept. The messages will detail attacks on these 5 locations. The locations were major Viridian bases in what used to be Seattle, Miami, Toronto, Mexico City, and Houston. But those aren't our real targets, Foster continued. While they reinforce these bases, we'll hit their command center in New York. Olivia stepped forward. We've studied their patterns. When they detect a threat, they follow standard procedure. Send reinforcements, increase patrols, power up defense systems. All of this drains their resources. Foster nodded. And since we know they have limited numbers, they'll be stretched thin everywhere else. The team spent days preparing. They planted old radio equipment set to broadcast the fake attack plans on frequencies the Viridians monitored. They gathered weapons, including Dr. Parker's frequency disruptors and Michelle Clark's bacteria bombs. On the night before the attack, Foster couldn't sleep. He walked through the quiet command center, stopping at a cracked window that showed a small piece of night sky. "We lose a lot of people tomorrow," Olivia said, joining him at the window. "Yes," Foster agreed. "But for the first time, we have a real chance." Operation Pushback began at dawn. The fake radio transmissions went out first, filled with details about the 5 decoy attacks. Viridian ships immediately began moving toward those cities. 3 hours later, the real attack began in New York. The city that once housed millions was now a Viridian stronghold. Their headquarters stood on the ruins of Central Park, a towering black structure surrounded by energy barriers. 500 resistance fighters approached from tunnels beneath the city. They carried the frequency disruptors that would disable Viridian shields and weapons. Leading the first group was Lieutenant Christopher Bennett. He checked his watch. 3, 2, 1. Now. All around the perimeter, fighters activated their disruptors. The invisible energy fields came down. Alarms blared across the Viridian base. "Move in," Christopher ordered. The battle was fierce. Viridian soldiers rushed to defend their headquarters, but for the first time, their advanced weapons failed them. The human fighters pushed forward, yard by yard. Inside the communications center at the Rocky Mountain Hub, Laura Wilson watched the battle through hijacked Viridian security feeds. A former IT specialist, she had been studying Viridian systems for months. "They're calling for reinforcements," she reported to Olivia, who coordinated from there. "Just as we expected." "Good," Olivia replied. "Start Phase 2. Laura's fingers flew across the keyboard as she initiated a program they had been developing since capturing the hub. It sent false commands to the Viridian defense systems around New York. "I'm in their network," she announced. "Rerouting automated defenses. Now." On the battlefield, the Viridians were suddenly shocked to see their own defense turrets turning against them. Confusion spread through their ranks. Foster, fighting alongside Christopher near the main entrance, saw the moment when doubt first appeared in the Viridian soldiers' movements. These aliens had never expected to lose. They had no plan for retreat. "Push harder," Foster shouted to his troops. "They're breaking." The fighting continued for hours. The humans lost many brave fighters, but the Viridians lost more. By sunset, Foster stood in the command center of the Viridian headquarters. "Secure the building," he ordered. "Download everything from their computers." Christopher approached, bleeding from a wound on his arm but smiling. "We did it, Captain." "We took one city," Foster corrected him. "There's still a long way to go." But word was already spreading. Across the world, resistance groups heard of the victory in New York. For the first time since the bombing, humans had taken back a major city from their invaders. The tide was turning. High General Zex paced the command chamber of the Viridian mothership. Reports of human victories flooded in from all sectors. New York had fallen, then Chicago, then bases across Europe and Asia. The humans were moving too fast, adapting too quickly. "Impossible," Zex muttered. "They are merely Class C beings. This cannot be happening." A junior officer approached nervously. "High General, we have lost contact with the Beijing command post." Zex slammed a blue-skinned fist onto the console. "Another one. How are they doing this?" When the Viridians first studied Earth from afar, they classified humans as Class C, intelligent but predictable, easily dominated. Their technology was primitive, their weapons simple. The bombing should have broken their will completely. "Show me the latest battle footage," Zex ordered. The screens lit up with images from around the world. Humans fighting with strange new devices that disabled Viridian shields. humans attacking from unexpected directions, humans using the environment against them. They are not fighting according to any known tactical doctrine, observed Commander Ellick, Zex's second-in-command. They improvise, Zex said, as understanding finally dawned. Each group fights differently. There is no central pattern to counter. For the first time in Viridian history, they faced an enemy who didn't follow the rules of war as they understood them. An enemy who, despite technological inferiority, refused to accept defeat. We must call for reinforcements, Ellick suggested. The main fleet can be here in 3 cycles. Yes, Zex agreed. Prepare the deep space transmitter. But when they attempted to send the message, nothing happened. The transmitter is not responding, reported the communications officer. It appears to be jammed on all frequencies. Zex's eyes widened. That's not possible. No Earth technology could interfere with our deep space communications. At that moment, the ship's interior alarms began to sound. We're being hacked, shouted the security officer. Someone is accessing our main systems. Miles below, in a bunker beneath the recaptured city of Paris, Dr. Parker and her team monitored their greatest achievement yet. After studying the data from New York, they had developed a jamming system that could reach orbit and block the Viridians' communications with their homeworld. It's working, Eric said, watching the screens. They can't call for help. Samantha nodded. And Laura's team is inside their computer systems. They can see everything the Viridians are doing. Laura Wilson, now the head of a specialized hacking unit, directed operations from New York. Her team had found a backdoor into the Viridian network and exploited it ruthlessly. They're panicking, she reported over the secure line. We've locked them out of weapons control on 3 of their ships. Foster, who now held the rank of general, smiled grimly. Keep pushing. Don't give them time to regroup. The war had completely turned. What began as small resistance cells had grown into a coordinated global force. Each human victory provided more captured Viridian technology, which Dr. Parker's team quickly adapted for human use. Back on the mothership, High General Zex faced the unthinkable defeat. How did we miscalculate so badly? He asked, more to himself than to Commander Ellick. We assumed their technological level reflected their intelligence and adaptability. Ellick replied, we were wrong. Zex looked at the world map, now covered with blue markers showing human-controlled territories. Only a few Viridian strongholds remained. They should have broken, he insisted. The bombardment destroyed their cities, their governments. No species we've encountered has ever recovered from such devastation. Perhaps, Ellick suggested quietly, that is why they are dangerous. They don't know when they're beaten. Zex made a decision. Prepare my shuttle. I wish to speak with their leaders. You mean to surrender? Ellick asked, shocked. I mean to survive, Zex replied, and ensure some of our people return home to warn others. He looked once more at the battle footage showing humans fighting with remarkable creativity and determination. These humans, he said softly, they are not Class C at all. They may be the most dangerous species we have ever encountered. The peace treaty was signed in the Grand Hall of the Neutral Station. Commander Allison Ward watched as the Kazuran Supreme Commander pressed his claw into the special ink, then onto the document. The tall alien's scales shimmered under the lights as he straightened up. I still do not fully understand your species, the Supreme Commander said. His translator made his growling voice sound almost musical, but I respect your strength. Ward nodded and signed her name below his mark. Understanding will come with time. Back on Earth, the news of peace spread quickly. Cities celebrated with lights and music. The memory of the bombings still hurt, but humans were moving forward. They always did. Dr. Olivia Benson set up her office in the new Cultural Exchange Center. Her walls were covered with Kazuran art and maps. 3 alien scientists worked with her team, learning about humans while teaching about their own people. Humans celebrate victory differently than we do, one Kazuran scientist observed. You rebuild. We would have taken trophies. Benson smiled. We take different kinds of trophies. Knowledge, new relationships, better defenses. Across the galaxy, news traveled fast. The three species that the Kazuran had conquered before watched and learned. The Tellarites, small bird-like beings, were the first to demand new treaties. The Vorn and the Juxan followed soon after. They had all seen what humanity did when attacked. They wanted that same fire. Major Kevin Doyle provided training to representatives from all three species. Stand together, he told them. The Kazuran respect strength. Show them yours. The Kazuran leadership created a special diplomatic handbook just for dealing with humans. The first rule read, never assume humans will abandon their territory when attacked. They will only fight harder. On Vega Prime, where it all began, the rebuilt colony shined brighter than before. The buildings were stronger. The defenses were better. Solar panels gleamed in the twin suns. Children played in parks that had once been smoking craters. Colonel Alan Rodriguez and Captain Susan Kelly stood at the center of the new Memorial Plaza. Workers were placing the final stone panel that bore the words, "You bombed us. That was your first mistake. Do you think they'll try again someday?" Kelly asked, watching the stone settle into place. Rodriguez shook his head. Not these ones. They're quick learners. Lieutenant Greg Martinez, now wearing commander stripes, supervised the loading of the UES Endeavour. The ship would be the first human vessel to explore beyond known space with Kazuran technical help. The aliens had provided star charts and engine improvements as part of the peace agreement. Are you nervous about having Kazuran crew members? His second officer asked. Martinez adjusted his uniform. No, we understand each other now. They know not to underestimate us, and we know not to assume they think like we do. The ship would launch in 3 days, humans and Kazuran working side by side. Unthinkable just months ago. In her home overlooking the Pacific Ocean, Commander Ward packed away her uniform for the last time. Her retirement had been approved. 30 years of service, ending with the most important first contact in human history. Her communication device chimed with a message from Earth Command. Admiral Catherine Walsh appeared on screen. The Tellarites have requested human advisors, Walsh said. The Kazuran are honoring the new treaties, but they want our help just in case. Ward smiled. Send Doyle. He understands both sides now. After the call ended, Ward stepped onto her porch and looked up at the stars. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, not as conquerors or victims, but as equals, perhaps even as teachers. She thought about what she told the Supreme Commander in their final private meeting. Sometimes the best way to make friends is to prove you're too dangerous to have as an enemy. The Kazuran had bombed human colonies thinking humans would run away. Instead, humans had taught the entire galaxy a lesson about determination, about standing your ground, about fighting back. And now, peace was possible, not because of fear, but because of respect. The stars looked different toward now. Not just beautiful lights, but places where humans would go, where they would be welcomed, or where they would make themselves welcome. Either way, the galaxy was learning. Never underestimate humans.